Nathan Blevins. How are you, Nathan?
I'm doing good.
Good. And you're from Tennessee, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm from Knoxville.
What do you do?
I am just basically a web consultant. I do ASP.NET, C# and VB.NET programming, just for local businesses and such in the area.
Well, that sounds pretty fun, but I was talking to you earlier about something that sounds like more fun, which is you were doing some stuff with robotics. I forgot now the name. What's it called?
It's Microsoft Robotics Studio. Yeah,
Robotics
that's kind of like
yeah. Tell me about that.
It's my hidden passion. So, usually one of the most fascinating things for kids and also for us big kids is that we love robots, and it's one of those things that kind of captures your imagination, and you're really into it. So I kind of started messing around with robots using Robotics Studio, and it's kind of like one of those things where you feel like it's a black box. You're kind of scared to get into it. You have no idea what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But Robotics Studio makes all that really easy. And so one of the things that we were talking about the Code Stock presentation, one of the things I like to do presentations on is just how easy it is to build robots and do that interaction piece there.
Okay.
Which is
So what is Robotics Studio?
So Robotics Studio basically is a port, I don't know if that's the right word, for Visual Studio.
Okay.
Where basically you have the same interface of sorts, and it basically exposes what they call the VPL, which is basically the visual programming language.
All right.
And what you can do there is basically have a sort of drag and drop functionality where you can handle decision making and decision trees in sort of like a workflow scenario that controls these robots.
Okay. Well, give me an example of a workflow scenario that would control a robot.
So one of the robots, and there's certain supported robots, but there's also APIs for supporting whatever robot you want. But one of the most popular is the Lego Mindstorm, which is this robot put out by Lego. You can build it with your your favorite Lego blocks, but it has motors and actuators and different things like that. So let's say you wanted a robot that a great example is have a robot that sings every time it rains. You want a robot that does singing in the rain. That's a great example.
I got a brother that does that. I don't think a robot.
Well, that's true. Well, if you want to mimic your brother,
that's a great example.
But anyway, the reason it's such a great example is basically you can configure it to where basically dropping decision-making logic, where you can consume services such as your favorite weather service, and say basically when this weather service says there is a 100% chance of rain, then I'm going to kick off this process that causes the robot to sing.
Oh, okay. That's
So-
the workflow you talked about.
Yeah.
So step one is to call the weather service, detect the weather. Step two is serve conditional logic if
Yep.
weather is raining.
So you just drag
And
down a little
do
if
this
block.
over here and start singing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's basically each of the robots have their certain actions that are configurable and predefined as a service block. So you basically drag in there's not actually a singing component to Mindstorm, but if there was, you just basically drag it on and basically say sing at this volume for this amount. And it's open to you as a developer to actually write those components too and just extend that.
Okay. And so you're not writing any code at all. You're dragging shapes and connectors onto a surface and building up this workflow.
Right.
Is there any coding involved in this?
Well, out of the box for a lot of the easy stuff, there's no coding at all. I mean, it's really, really easy stuff where if I wanted to get any generic controller and control this robot, essentially you drag over a generic controller like a USB-powered 360 remote is out of the box programmed. So you drag on that surface, you put your conditional logic, and you drag on your Mindstorm brick, and you say, when they hit the A button, I want these two wheels to turn at 80% speed.
Okay.
Or something to that effect.
So you could actually do this development without knowing anything about C#, anything about VB.
Yeah, you could go quite far with knowing very little about code. And that's one of the great things about this is I feel it's very kid-friendly because, with some supervision, because there is a little bit of configuration stuff you have to do sometimes, but with some supervision, kids can easily start expressing how to drive robots just with this drag and drop functionality.
Okay, so what do I need to get started? I need to download the Robotics Studio? Is
There's
that from Microsoft?
There's Microsoft's Robotics Studio.
And that's a free download from Microsoft?
There's an Express edition as well as an academic and professional edition.
Okay.
The big thing with the editions is if you get the Express, you don't have the ability to compile it into a C# library. So let's say that you wrote some code and it got to the point to where you were trying to do something that wasn't quite supported and you wanted to write your own custom logic.
Okay.
You can compile it to the C# library and just pick up the code from there and write it. So if you don't have the, if you have the Express edition, you're not allowed to do that.
Does that mean that you need to have robotics studio on the machine in order to run it?
Yeah, so you have to have a Robotics Studio running. So basically, it's Robotics Studio is almost like a service that runs in the background. It consumes these web services and then pushes them out like to your robot to control it. The key to understand, and I think it's where a lot of people trip up, is the brains is not actually on the robot itself. The brains is your computer, or in essence, you have a distributed network of decision-making logic you can do from many computers that basically communicates the final directions to your robot.
All right. What about if I want to control a particular robot? Does every robot have their own software that I need to download and install in order to talk to it? Like the Mindstorm, for example.
Well, the Mindstorm, basically, there's some that are pre-configured to work with Visual Studio. Basically, they've already written the services to do that.
Okay, so you get the most popular ones.
Right, so like there's like the iRobots. If you're familiar with the Roombas.
Oh, the little vacuum cleaners?
Yeah, there's actually a Roomba variation for Robotics Studio that you can buy.
Attack your mother-in-law with it. And
Yeah. So it's kind of neat. And then there's like all sorts of different levels of advancement there. And so you can just set those up to run and rock and roll with it.
Oh, excellent. Is there, what do you think, is there a business application to this? Do you think that in the real world people are using this or could use this to solve business problems?
One of the fun things as far for the business application is whenever they were developing Robotics Studio, they actually brought together, academics, hobbyists, the whole thing saying, hey, how can we give you more value? How can we make these easily done? And they actually created what's known as a simulation environment. So essentially, as a business, one of your biggest things is cost. Things are expensive. Sure. You have 50 developers working on a robot. You don't want to buy them 50 robots. So what you can do is using XNA, you can build simulated environments that mimic your robot. And then while you're in the business application, you can debug your code and everything against that robot. And that reduces that hardware requirement.
Okay.
Or in some cases, there's a lot of machines that are so expensive to use that you have to book, I have to pay for an hour's worth of use of this machine. But you can use the not the VPL, but the simulation environment to run that and cut down on costs so you're not debugging during your production runs against the machine.
All right.
So I think there's some great business applications for it that I think can be utilized pretty.
Sounds awesome. Where can we go to find out more information?
There's actually an official Microsoft Robotics site. They've actually done a revamp on it. It looks kind of nice. I'm not exactly sure if it's robotics at Microsoft.com, but just Google Microsoft Robotics and you'll find it pretty easily.
They'll be mad if they hear you say it too.
Bing or live or whatever verb you want to use. The search engine verb that you prefer, Microsoft Robotics.
It's not me, it's those guys.
Yeah, I understand. Those guys.
And you have anything else you want to talk about? You have a blog?
Yeah, my blog is nathanblevins.com. It's a personal/technical blog, so you get all sorts of stuff from my puppies to my latest code.
That's great. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Before you go, I have one more thing. I want you to use the words technology and friends in a sentence. Take your time.
I have a lot of friends in technology.
Well, that one's been used before. That's okay.
Oh, sorry.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.